The galaxy had been ruled by the same four species for thousands of years. They called themselves the Galactic Council, and they controlled everything. The Velthari were tall creatures with 6 arms and skin like metal. The Quentics were insect-like beings who shared one mind across millions of bodies. The Lumini were made of pure light and energy. The Mekros were machines that could think and feel. Together they owned 10,000 star systems and made all the important decisions. When humans first arrived in their galaxy, the council members looked down at them with amusement. The human ship was small and simple compared to their massive vessels. Captain Doyen stepped out of his exploration vessel called the Wandering Hope and offered friendship. The council accepted, but they did not treat humans as equals. The council gave humanity a title called Junior Members. It sounded nice, but it meant nothing. Humans could not vote on any decisions. They could not own the best trade routes. They were not allowed to have advanced weapons or shields. The council said this was for everyone's safety, but really they just did not want to share power with a new species. Doyen argued with them many times. He explained that humans had traveled through space for a long time and knew how to take care of themselves. The council smiled and nodded, but they never changed their rules. They told him that humans were too young, too emotional, too unpredictable. Maybe in a few thousand years, they said, humans could have more rights. But humans did not give up. They could not vote or own good trade routes, so they found other ways to survive. They became workers. They became helpers. They became the people who did all the jobs that other species did not want to do. Hana was one of the first human terraformers. She could look at a dead planet and see how to make it alive. She studied the soil, the air, and the water. She designed systems to create atmospheres and grow plants. The council hired her to fix 3 dying worlds that even their best scientists had given up on. Hana worked for 5 years on each planet. She turned gray rocks into green gardens. Rivers flowed where there had been only dust. Trees grew tall and strong. The council took credit for her work and gave the awards to Velthari supervisors. Hana received a small payment and no recognition. Taiho was a mediator. He was good at understanding different types of people and helping them solve problems. The Quentics and Velthari had been fighting a war for 200 years. Millions had died. The council tried to stop the war many times, but always failed. They hired Taiho because they had no other options. He spent 6 months traveling between both sides. He listened to their anger and pain. He found solutions that both sides could accept. The war ended peacefully. The council said their own diplomats deserved the credit. Taiho received a thank you letter and nothing more. Minji was a doctor who worked with all kinds of species. She learned how to heal creatures made of light, beings with 6 hearts and machines that could get sick. The Lumini were dying from something they called the dimming sickness. Their light was fading and they did not know why. Minji studied them for 2 years. She discovered that they needed a special kind of radiation that no longer existed in their home systems. She found a way to create it artificially. She saved millions of Lumini lives. The council gave the patent for her cure to a Mekros company. Minji received nothing. This was how it worked for humans everywhere. They fixed things that were broken. They solved problems that seemed impossible. They worked harder than anyone else, and they were always ignored. Dr. Sajin was Earth's official representative to the council. He was an old man with kind eyes and a patient voice. Every year he stood before the council and asked them to give humans equal rights. Every year they said no. He never shouted or made threats. He simply explained again and again why humans deserved respect. The council members were always polite to his face. Behind his back they laughed. They called humans the helpful ones and the junior race. They joked that humans were like pets who had learned to use tools. 50 years passed. Doyen became an old man. Hana's hair turned gray. Taiho retired from mediating conflicts. Minji trained a new generation of human doctors. Sajin kept asking for equal rights and the council kept saying no. Humans spread across the galaxy during those 50 years. They worked on space stations, mining colonies, trading posts, and research facilities. Everywhere they went, they made things better. They improved old systems and created new solutions. They brought art and music to worlds that had forgotten beauty. They told stories that made even the Lumini cry, but the council never noticed. Or rather, they noticed but did not care. Humans were useful and that was enough. The council did not think about what would happen if humans ever decided to leave. On Keeper Station, the largest trading hub in the galaxy, humans ran almost everything important. Engineer Eugen kept the gravity working. Without gravity, everyone would float away. Dr. Suman ran the medical center where thousands of species came for help. Trader Jinho managed the commodity exchange where fortunes were made and lost every day. There were thousands of other humans doing thousands of other jobs. The station could not function without them, but nobody said thank you. Nobody gave them bonuses or promotions. The station master, a proud Velthari named Korthan, took credit for everything that went well and blamed humans for everything that went wrong. One day, a young human woman named Nari was attacked in the lower decks of the station. The attacker was the son of a Velthari commander. He hurt her badly and then laughed about it. Nari reported the attack to station security. She showed them her injuries. She had witnesses. The security chief looked at her report and closed it immediately. He said it was just a misunderstanding between species. He said the Velthari commander's son did not mean any harm. He said Nari should be more careful about where she went on the station. No investigation happened. No punishment was given. Instead, the security chief sent an official apology to the Velthari commander for bothering his son with questions. Nari received nothing except a warning to not cause trouble. When other humans heard about this, they were angry. They had dealt with insults and unfair treatment for 50 years. They had worked hard and received no recognition. They had built up the galaxy and been treated as servants. But this was different. This was not just ignoring their contributions. This was telling them that their safety did not matter, that their lives did not matter. The humans on Keeper Station did not riot. They did not protest in the streets. They did not send angry messages to the council. They did something much more powerful. They quietly began to plan their departure. And they were not alone. Across the galaxy, on 10,000 worlds and 1,000,000 stations, humans were having the same conversation. They had given the galaxy 50 years. They had been patient. They had hoped things would change. Now they knew the truth. Things would never change. The council would never see them as equals. It was time to go home. Keeper Station floated near the center of the galaxy like a massive wheel of metal and glass. Over 1,000,000 beings from 500 different species lived and worked there. It was the heart of galactic trade, where ships arrived every minute carrying goods from distant worlds. The station was so large that it had its own weather inside some sections. Clouds formed in the tallest chambers. Rain fell in the garden districts. Humans had built most of it. The original station design came from the Mechros, but it had not worked properly. The gravity failed constantly. The air recycling systems broke down. The power grid was unstable. The council hired human engineers to fix the problems, and they did much more than that. They redesigned the whole station from the inside out. They made it better, safer, and more efficient. Eugen was one of those engineers. He had worked on Keeper Station for 20 years. He knew every pipe, every wire, every hidden passage in the gravity generator rooms. The generators were incredibly complex machines that created artificial gravity across the entire station. Without them, everyone would float helplessly in space. The Velthari who supervised Eugen did not understand how the generators really worked. They knew how to turn them on and off, but when something went wrong, they called Eugen. Dr. Suman ran the main medical bay in the commercial district. She had been there for 15 years. She could treat injuries and illnesses from hundreds of different species. Some aliens had blood that could burn through metal. Others had bodies that existed partially in other dimensions. Some could survive in vacuum but died if they got too warm. Suman had learned to help all of them. She kept careful records in 18 different languages. She created treatment plans that other doctors said were impossible. The medical bay saved thousands of lives every month. Trader Jinho managed the commodity exchange, where people bought and sold everything from water to starship fuel to rare crystals. The exchange was a complicated system of numbers, contracts, and timing. Prices changed every second based on supply and demand across the galaxy. Jinho had created special programs that made the system work smoothly. Without his programs, the exchange would crash and billions of credits would be lost. There were 5,000 other humans on Keeper Station doing 5,000 other essential jobs. They kept the station alive, but the station master Korthan never acknowledged them. When important visitors came, Korthan showed them around and took credit for everything. He never mentioned the humans who actually did the work. After Nari was attacked and the security chief dismissed her case, something changed among the humans. They had quiet meetings in their quarters. They sent encrypted messages to other human communities across the galaxy. They made plans. 3 days after Nari's case was closed, Eugene went to Corthan's office. He carried a datapad with his resignation letter. Corthan barely looked up from his desk. "I am leaving Keeper Station," Eugene said calmly. Corthan laughed. "Leaving? Did someone offer you more money?" "No, I am returning to Earth." "Earth?" Corthan looked confused. "Why would you go back to that little world?" "Your job is here." "Not anymore," Eugene said. He placed the datapad on Corthan's desk and walked out. Over the next 2 days, every human on Keeper Station submitted resignation letters. Dr. Suman closed her medical bay. Trader Jinho transferred all his accounts and locked his programs. Teachers, mechanics, chefs, pilots, artists, and scientists all filed departure paperwork. They packed their belongings into storage containers. They booked passage on human ships. Corthan called an emergency meeting with the human representatives. "What is this about?" he demanded. "You cannot all leave at once." "We can and we will," replied Suman quietly. "But why? Did we not pay you enough? We can discuss raises." "This is not about money," said Jinho. "This is about respect. You have never treated us as equals. When Nari was attacked, you did nothing. You have taken credit for our work for decades. We are finished." Corthan's face showed confusion more than anger. He genuinely did not understand. "But you are junior members. This is how things work. You do the work and we manage the station. Everyone has a role." "Then manage the station without us," Eugene said. The humans began leaving that same day. Long lines formed at the departure docks as human ships prepared to take them away. Other species watched with curiosity, but did not think much of it. The Velthari supervisors were confident they could replace the humans easily. 4 days after the humans left, one of the main gravity generators began making strange noises. The Velthari engineers rushed to check it. They pulled up Eugene's maintenance logs, but they could not understand them. Eugene had written everything in simple language, but he had left out the details that only he knew. The generator needed a special adjustment every 12 hours, but Eugene had never written that down. He just did it automatically. The gravity failed in the western sections of the station. Thousands of beings suddenly floated helplessly. Some were injured when they hit the ceiling. It took 6 hours to get the gravity working again, and even then it was unstable. 6 days after the humans left, a disease broke out in the Quentix quarter. It was not a serious illness, but it spread quickly. The remaining doctors tried to treat it using Dr. Suman's records, but Suman had written her patient files in a mixture of languages, using medical terms from 18 different cultures. She did this because her patients came from many worlds and she wanted to remember their specific needs. The other doctors could not read her files. They tried standard treatments that did not work. The disease spread to other districts. 8 days after the humans left, the commodity exchange crashed. Billions of credits were locked in frozen accounts. Trader Jinho's programs had stopped working, and nobody else could fix them. The programs were not broken exactly, but they required constant small adjustments based on market conditions. Jinho had made those adjustments dozens of times each day without thinking about it. Without him, the programs fell apart. Keeper Station descended into chaos. Ships could not dock properly because the traffic control systems malfunctioned. Food shipments spoiled because the refrigeration systems broke down. Lights flickered in the residential areas. Water recycling slowed to a trickle. The council held an emergency session. Representatives from all over the galaxy demanded to know what was happening. Corthan had to admit the truth. The humans were gone, and the station was falling apart without them. "Hire new workers," suggested the Quentix representative. "We are trying," Corthan said, "but nobody else knows how the systems work. The humans modified everything. They made improvements that we do not understand." "Force them to come back," said the Velthari ambassador. "On what grounds?" "They broke no laws. They simply quit their jobs." Dr. Sejan appeared on the council's main screen. He looked tired but peaceful. The council members had not spoken to him directly in years. They usually ignored his requests for meetings. "We wish to negotiate the return of human workers," the council chairman said, trying to sound diplomatic. "No," Sejan replied simply. "No? You will not even discuss it?" "There is nothing to discuss. For 50 years I asked you to treat us fairly. You refused. We gave you our skills, our time, our hope. You gave us nothing but disrespect. Now we are going home. Home? Where is home for 4 billion humans scattered across the galaxy? Sagen smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not angry either. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. We have always had a home waiting. We stayed because we wanted to be part of your civilization. We thought you would accept us eventually. We were wrong. Please, the chairman said, and for the first time there was real worry in his voice. We can change. We can give you better rights. You had 300 years to do that. You chose not to. Now you will learn what happens when you take good people for granted. Sagen ended the transmission. The council sat in stunned silence. Keeper Station was just one location. As reports came in from across the galaxy, they realized the problem was everywhere. Human workers were leaving by the millions, and everywhere they left, systems began to fail. The evacuation happened so smoothly that many species did not notice it at first. Humans did not make announcements or hold protests. They simply packed their belongings, boarded their ships, and left. But the scale of it was incredible. 4 billion humans lived across 10,000 worlds. Getting them all to leave at the same time required careful planning. Captain Yegan commanded the human carrier fleet. She had spent the last 30 years preparing for this moment, even though she hoped it would never come. Every human ship in the galaxy, from small personal shuttles to massive transport carriers, followed a secret protocol. They had practiced this evacuation in secret simulations. They knew exactly where to go and when to leave. Yegan sat in the command chair of her flagship, the Remembrance. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of thousands of human ships. They were converging from all directions, moving toward the unexplored regions beyond the galaxy's edge. The coordination was perfect. No ships collided. No one got lost. It was like watching a river flow, natural and unstoppable. All ships reporting in, her communications officer said. We have 98% of all humans accounted for. The remaining 2% are in transit and will join us within the week. Yegan nodded. 98%. After being scattered across such vast distances. Getting almost everyone together was a miracle of organization. The council finally understood the scope of what was happening when their deep space sensors detected the human fleet. Thousands of ships moving in formation, all heading in the same direction. The council sent fast scout ships to follow them, but the human vessels were faster than expected. They used propulsion systems that the council scientists did not recognize. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the Velthari mine supervisor stood in the empty control room and stared at the silent equipment. The human workers had operated the deep core drilling machines. These machines could dig through solid rock to reach valuable minerals deep underground. The work was incredibly dangerous. The drills generated extreme heat and pressure. One mistake could cause an explosion that would kill everyone nearby. The Velthari had designed the machines, but they did not want to operate them. The risk was too high. Humans had volunteered to do the dangerous work. They said they were good at handling risky situations. For 20 years, they had extracted minerals worth trillions of credits. Production had increased every year. Now the humans were gone. The mine supervisor tried to restart the drilling operations using Velthari workers. On the first day, 2 workers were injured when they could not handle the pressure controls correctly. On the second day, a drill overheated and melted through 3 levels of the mine. On the third day, the supervisor shut everything down. It was too dangerous to continue. Without the mines producing, the Velthari economy began to suffer. They needed those minerals to build ships and construct buildings. Prices rose. Projects were delayed. The council demanded that the supervisor restart production, but he refused. He would not send his people to die. The Quentics faced a different problem. As a hive mind species, they could communicate perfectly with each other, but they struggled to talk with other species. Humans had served as translators for 300 years. A human translator did not just convert words from one language to another. They understood culture, emotion, and context. They could explain why a Quentic's diplomatic message was accidentally insulting to the Lumini, or why a Velthari business proposal would never work for the Mekros. Without human translators, misunderstandings multiplied. Trade agreements fell apart because neither side understood what the other wanted. Diplomatic meetings ended in confusion. The Quentics tried using computer translation programs, but the programs were too literal. They could not capture the subtle meanings that made communication work. The Lumini discovered a similar problem with their culture. The Lumini were beings of pure energy, who experienced the universe differently than physical species. They appreciated beauty, but their art was strange to others. It consisted of light patterns and energy fluctuations that most species could not even see properly. Human artists had learned to bridge this gap. They created fusion art that combined Lumini energy patterns with physical sculptures that other species could appreciate. They wrote music that translated Lumini light songs into sounds. They told stories that explained Lumini philosophy in ways that others could understand. When the human artists left, Lumini culture became isolated again. Their festivals continued, but few non-Lumini attended because they did not understand what they were seeing. The Lumini felt lonely in a galaxy full of people who could not appreciate their beauty. The Mekros, being logical machines, thought they would manage best without humans. They were wrong. The Mekros were brilliant at calculation and analysis, but they followed strict rules and procedures. When they encountered a problem that did not fit their rules, they struggled to find solutions. Humans had introduced something called creative problem solving. They looked at problems from different angles. They tried unusual solutions. They made intuitive leaps that the Mekros could not program. This had improved Mekros systems by incredible amounts. Their factories produced more. Their ships ran more efficiently. Their cities functioned better. Without humans, the Mekros could maintain their existing systems, but they could not improve them. When new problems appeared, they tried to solve them using old methods. It worked sometimes, but not always. Slowly, their famous efficiency began to decline. Reports flooded into the council from every sector. Mining operations failing, translation services collapsing, cultural events becoming hollow, infrastructure breaking down. The pattern was clear. Humans had been essential to everything, but nobody had noticed until they were gone. Hyejin received thousands of personal messages during the evacuation. Many came from aliens who had worked alongside humans. A Velthari engineer named Korthan, different from the station master, sent a message to his human colleague Bora. He said he never realized how much he had learned from her. He thanked her for her patience when he made mistakes. He asked her to please reconsider leaving. Bora read the message and cried. Korthan had been a good friend, but she wrote back explaining that she could not stay in a place where her people were not valued. She wished him well. A Quentix diplomat named Zilith sent a long message to his human friend Minho. Zilith explained that he had argued with his hive many times about giving humans better treatment. He had lost those arguments. Now he regretted not fighting harder. He begged Minho to stay and help him change things from within. Minho replied that he had spent 40 years trying to change things from within. It had not worked. Change had to come from the council themselves, not from humans begging for basic respect. Thousands of similar messages arrived. Some were genuine expressions of friendship and regret. Some were desperate pleas from supervisors who did not know how to do their jobs without human help. Some were angry demands from council officials who thought humans had an obligation to stay. Hyejin read a summary of the messages each day. Each one hurt. Humans had made real friends in the galaxy. They had built genuine relationships. Leaving meant abandoning people they cared about. But staying meant accepting a permanent position as second-class citizens. It meant watching their children grow up in a society that would never value them. It meant giving up their dignity. They had 300 years, Hyejin told her crew during one of their evening briefings. We gave them 300 years to see us as equals. We worked hard. We proved ourselves again and again. Some of them became our friends, and we love them for that. But friendship from individuals is not enough when the system itself is broken. We have to go. The fleet continued moving toward the galaxy's edge. They passed through regions of space that the Council had marked as unexplored and dangerous. But humans had been exploring these regions for centuries in secret. They knew the safe routes. They knew where they were going. The Council sent their fastest ships to follow the human fleet and discover their destination. But every time they got close, the human ships accelerated beyond what their sensors said was possible. The Council ships fell behind. Finally, the long-range sensors detected something that should have been impossible. 7 planets all orbiting the same star, all within the perfect zone for life. But these were not natural planets. The energy signatures were wrong. The orbital patterns were too perfect. The Council scientists analyzed the data and reached an impossible conclusion. Those planets had been built. Someone had constructed 7 Earth-sized worlds and placed them in perfect orbits around a stable star. and the human fleet was heading straight for them. The Council probe arrived at the 7 worlds 3 days before the first human ships. The probe's cameras sent back images that made the Council scientists question everything they thought they knew about technology. 7 planets floated in perfect formation around a golden star. Each planet was the size of Earth. Each had blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds swirling in thick atmospheres. But when the probe scanned deeper, it found things that natural planets should not have. The cores were fusion reactors, not molten metal. The tectonic plates moved on tracks, not randomly. The atmospheres were generated by massive machines hidden in the mantles. Even the star itself had been modified with stabilizing fields to ensure it would burn steadily for billions of years. Someone had built these worlds. Someone had engineered entire planets like humans might build houses. Impossible, said Velkrin, the head of the Mekros research division. Creating one artificial world would take thousands of years and resources from 100 star systems. 7 worlds? No known civilization has this capability. The humans are heading there now, replied the Veltari observer. Perhaps they found these worlds abandoned by some ancient race. Or perhaps, said Luminite Counselor Shara quietly, we never knew who the humans really were. The first human ships arrived at the planet they called Haven. Millions of people had gathered on the ships to watch the moment when they would finally see their new home. Children pressed their faces against viewports. Elderly humans who had spent their entire lives in space wept at the sight of a real planet. Captain Hyegen stood on the bridge of the Remembrance as it entered Haven's orbit. The planet was beautiful beyond words. Rivers carved through forests. Mountains touched the clouds. Cities waited empty, their buildings grown from living crystal that shimmered in the sunlight. Beginning landing operations, her pilot announced, all systems showing green. The planet is ready for us. Thousands of shuttles descended from the fleet. They landed in the prepared cities on platforms that had been waiting for decades. Humans stepped out onto grass that had been growing wild without anyone to walk on it. They breathed air that had been cycling through the atmosphere for 50 years, kept fresh by the planet's life support systems. Engineer Eugen was on one of the first shuttles. He landed in a city on Haven's northern continent. The buildings here were designed for families, with gardens between them and parks every few blocks. He walked through empty streets that felt like coming home, even though he had never been here before. He found his assigned quarters in a tower overlooking the ocean. Inside, everything was ready. Furniture made from sustainable materials, a kitchen with food synthesizers, a workshop where he could continue his engineering projects, windows that could change from clear to opaque with a thought. Eugen sat on the balcony and looked out at the empty city slowly filling with arriving humans. He pulled up a holographic display and accessed the planet's core systems. What he saw made him smile. The fusion reactor at Haven's core was a masterpiece of engineering. It would run for 1 billion years without maintenance. The earthquake dampers would keep the surface stable. The weather control systems would prevent destructive storms while still allowing natural rain and snow. This planet was better than anything the Council had ever built. And there were 6 more just like it. The Council sent an emergency delegation to the human worlds. Their ship was allowed to approach but not land. Instead, a human representative met them in orbit. Dr. Suman appeared on their view screen looking calm and professional. We demand to know how you acquired this technology, the Velthari ambassador said without greeting. These planets violate 17 Galactic Council technology treaties. We did not acquire this technology, Suman replied. We created it. We have been building these worlds for 12,000 years. Silence filled the Council ship. 12,000 years. That was how long the Council itself had existed. You are claiming that humans are as old as our civilization? The Quentix representative asked. We are claiming that we are much older. The Council formed 12,000 years ago in this galaxy. Humans have been traveling through space for 15,000 years. We reached your galaxy only 3 centuries ago. The Mekros counselor processed this information. If this is true, why did you never tell us? Why did you pretend to be a young species? Suman's expression became sad. We did not pretend anything. You assumed we were young because we arrived recently in your space. You assumed we were weak because we did not show off our weapons. You assumed we were inferior because we were willing to work hard. We never claimed to be young. You simply never asked. But why? Asked Lumini Counselor Shara. Why did you stay and work for us if you had all this waiting? Because we hoped, Suman said simply. For 15,000 years we have traveled through the cosmos. We have met hundreds of civilizations. Some welcomed us. Some attacked us. Some ignored us. When we found your galaxy, we thought perhaps this time would be different. We saw your council working together despite your differences. We thought you might accept us as partners. She paused and her voice became quieter. So we built these worlds and left them empty. We stayed in your space and worked your jobs and tried to become part of your civilization. Every human who fixed your machines, healed your sick, or taught your children was a volunteer. We could have come here at any time. We stayed because we wanted to believe you would see us as equals. The Velthari ambassador struggled to process this. Every human worker was choosing to be there. Every single one. The dangerous mining jobs? We volunteered. The translation work that required learning hundreds of languages? We volunteered. The medical research on deadly diseases? We volunteered. We did it all because we wanted to help. We wanted to be part of something larger than ourselves. Engineer Eugen appeared on the transmission, standing beside Suman. Behind him, Haven's landscape stretched to the horizon. Did you think we could maintain your infrastructure by accident? Did you think we fixed your impossible problems through luck? We are master engineers. We build worlds. Your space stations and ships were simple for us. We could have told you this, but we wanted to be accepted for who we were, not feared for what we could do. More humans joined the transmission. Dr. Suman moved aside to show Captain Heejin, Trader Jinho, Terraformer Hana, and dozens of others. Behind them, cities filled with arriving humans. Children played in parks. Families explored their new homes. Scientists examined the planet's systems with wonder and pride. We gave you 300 years, Heejin said. We maintained your civilization. We solved your problems. We enriched your cultures. We asked only for basic respect in return. You treated us as servants. You took credit for our work. You ignored our contributions. And when one of our people was hurt, you did nothing. Trader Jinho stepped forward. We do not hate you. Hatred requires energy we will not waste. Some of you were our friends and we will miss you, but we will not sacrifice our dignity to stay in a place that does not value us. The transmission showed more of the 7 worlds. Haven with its oceans and forests. Hope with its mountains and rivers. Sanctuary with its deserts and canyons. Refuge with its islands and seas. Paradise with its valleys and plains. Grace with its glaciers and tundra. Memorial, the 7th world, covered in gardens and monuments to remember all the humans who had lived and died during their 15,000 years of space travel. These worlds are home now, Sumin concluded. We will stay here and build our society. We will explore the regions beyond your galaxy. We will continue our journey through the stars. But we will do it without you. Wait, Shara said desperately. Please, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. Give us a chance to correct them. Return to us and we will give you full council membership. We will make you equals. No, Suman said gently. You will make these promises now because you need us. But once we return and fix your systems, you will forget again. You will fall back into old patterns. We would have to fight for every tiny bit of respect. We would have to prove ourselves over and over. We are tired of fighting. We are tired of proving. We are going home. The transmission ended. The council ship drifted in space, its crew stunned into silence. Below them, millions of humans continued arriving at their 7 worlds. And beyond the 7 worlds, defense systems activated. Massive satellites appeared from stealth mode. Energy shields stronger than anything the council possessed enclosed the entire solar system. The humans had not just built 7 worlds. They had built a fortress, a place where they could finally rest without fear, without judgment, without having to justify their existence to anyone. The council ship turned and began the long journey back to report what they had found. Behind them, humanity closed its borders and disappeared from galactic affairs, quietly, as they did everything, but this time by choice. The collapse did not happen overnight. It was slow, like watching a great tree die from the roots upward. At first, the council believed they could manage without humans. They were the elder races, after all. They had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years before humans arrived. Surely they could continue for 12,000 more. They were wrong. 6 months after the humans left, Keeper Station experienced its first major casualty. The backup gravity generator failed completely. Engineer Eugen had maintained both the primary and backup systems. When he left, the remaining engineers focused on the primary generator and ignored the backup. When the primary generator needed repairs, they switched to the backup. It lasted 4 hours before exploding. 17 people died in the explosion. Hundreds more were injured when sections of the station lost gravity unexpectedly. It took 3 weeks to restore full gravity, and even then the repaired system was unstable. People learned to keep magnetic boots nearby at all times. The council hired engineers from every species to study the problem. They took apart the generators and tried to understand how they worked. The basic principle was simple enough. The details were incredibly complex. Eugen had modified the original Mekros design in thousands of small ways. Each modification made sense when you understood the previous one, but nobody understood the whole system anymore. 1 year after the humans left, the Velthari mining operations had collapsed by 80%. They tried using robots instead of workers, but the robots were not creative enough to handle unexpected problems. They tried hiring workers from other species, but none were willing to take such dangerous jobs for the pay offered. The Velthari realized they had underpaid humans for decades of deadly work. With fewer minerals available, construction projects across the galaxy slowed down. New ships took twice as long to build. Space stations could not be expanded. Some colonies could not get the materials they needed to maintain their life support systems. 2 years after the humans left, the translation crisis reached a breaking point. The Quentics and Velthari, who had maintained peace for 300 years, almost went to war over a misunderstanding. A Quentics trade proposal was translated by computer as an aggressive demand. The Velthari responded with what they thought was a firm but fair counteroffer. The computer translated it as a threat. Both sides mobilized fleets before someone suggested they try speaking directly without computer translation. It took weeks of careful work to untangle the misunderstanding. They realized that human translators had been preventing these kinds of mistakes constantly for 3 centuries. The council created a task force to train new translators, but it was difficult. Humans had been naturally good at understanding different perspectives and cultures. They had spent time learning not just languages, but the underlying thoughts and feelings of different species. The new translators were technically accurate, but missed the emotional context that made communication really work. 3 years after the humans left, the Lumini held their annual Festival of Radiance. It had always been the galaxy's biggest cultural event, attracting millions of visitors. This year, fewer than 10,000 non-Lumini attended. Without human artists to bridge the gap, most species could not understand or appreciate Lumini art. The Lumini counselor Shara walked through the nearly empty festival grounds and felt profound sadness. She remembered when humans had created spectacular fusion performances that helped everyone understand Lumini culture. Now the festival felt hollow, like speaking to an empty room. 5 years after the humans left, the Mekros discovered their efficiency ratings had dropped by 30%. Their factories produced less. Their ships took longer to travel between stars. Their cities felt rigid and uncomfortable. They had lost the creative improvements that humans had introduced. A Mekros analyst named Kiever spent months studying the problem. He finally concluded that the Mekros had become dependent on human creativity without realizing it. Humans had taught them to think differently, to try unusual solutions, to experiment and innovate. Without that influence, the Mekros had fallen back into pure logic and strict procedures. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Their meeting chamber was on a station that humans had renovated 50 years ago. The climate control system had broken down months ago, making the room uncomfortably cold. They wore thermal suits during meetings now. "We must convince the humans to return," the new Velthari ambassador insisted. She was younger than her predecessor, and had actually read the reports about human contributions. "We cannot continue this way." "They will not come back," replied Kiever. "We have sent 10,000 messages. All have been ignored. Then we must offer them something valuable. Technology, territory, resources. They built 7 planets, Shara reminded everyone. They have technology beyond ours. What could we possibly offer them? Silence filled the chamber. The truth was bitter but undeniable. Humans did not need anything the council could provide. They had left because of how they were treated, not because they wanted something material. "We were fools," Shara continued. "We saw them as lesser because they were new to our galaxy. We never asked where they came from or what they had achieved before meeting us. We assumed our own superiority and never questioned it. The Quentix representative, speaking through a computer translator that mangled some of the words, added, "They brought vitality to our civilization. They asked questions we had stopped asking. They tried solutions we had dismissed as impossible. They made us better, and we treated them as servants." "What happens now?" asked the Velthari ambassador. Kiever pulled up projections on the chamber's main screen. "At current rates of decline, we will lose another 40% efficiency over the next decade. Critical infrastructure will fail across multiple systems. Our technological progress has already stopped. We can maintain existing systems barely, but we cannot innovate.
We cannot solve new problems.
In 200 years, our civilization will regress to pre-space age." The council members stared at the projections. 200 years seemed like a long time, but for species that lived for centuries, it was frighteningly soon. "Is there nothing we can do?" the Velthari ambassador asked. "We can change," Shara said quietly. "We can learn from our mistakes. We can treat our remaining junior members with genuine respect. We can build a better society so that if humanity ever looks at us again, they might see something worth joining." It was not a solution to their immediate problems, but it was something. The council began reforms. They gave full voting rights to 3 species that had been junior members for thousands of years. They improved working conditions across all facilities. They created new rules about respecting all species equally, but the damage was done. Those 3 newly promoted species remembered how humans had been treated. They did not trust the council's sudden change of heart. 1 species left the galaxy entirely to find their own path. The other 2 accepted their new rights but remained cautious. Meanwhile, behind their impenetrable shields, humanity thrived. The 7 worlds filled with cities and farms. Children grew up on real planets instead of space stations. Scientists explored new technologies without having to share their discoveries with ungrateful supervisors. Artists created works of beauty without censorship. Engineers built wonders because they wanted to, not because they were ordered to. Captain Hyejin, now an old woman, stood on a cliff on Haven overlooking the ocean. Her great-granddaughter played nearby, chasing butterflies through the grass. The child had been born on Haven and never known what it felt like to be treated as inferior. "Tell me the story again, grandmother," the girl asked, "about when humans lived with the other species." Hyejin smiled and sat down on the grass. "We lived among them for 300 years. We fixed their machines and healed their sick. We taught them new ways of thinking. We gave them our time and skills, but they were mean to us? Not mean exactly. They just could not see us as equals. They thought they were better because they had been there first. So we left and came home. Will we ever go back?" Hyejin looked out at the ocean, thinking about all the friends she had left behind. Good people who had treated her with respect even when their society did not. "Maybe someday, little one. When they have learned to see everyone as equally valuable. When they understand that being different does not mean being lesser." "How long will that take?" "A long time. Maybe longer than your lifetime or mine. But humans are patient. We have been traveling through space for 15,000 years. We can wait a little longer." On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Sajin died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 130. His last official act was to record a message to the Galactic Council. It was delivered after his death. The council members watched the recording in their cold meeting chamber. Sajin appeared on the screen, looking frail but clear-eyed. "This is my final message to you," he said. "I spent 50 years asking you to treat my people fairly. You refused. I do not blame you anymore. You did what your culture taught you to do.